This session is really going to be like a quick intro to DNA for genealogy. So we're just going to be skimming the surface really of this very complex topic, but hopefully even if you've been doing this for a while, you'll get something out of this. All right, the first thing I was going to say is there are a lot of DNA success stories out there, and I am only choosing to tell you about two of them, but there's lots of them. These are the kind of things that you can do with your DNA. So first of all, there is Jim. Jim is somebody that I actually know. He lives around here in the Fort Wayne area, and he took a DNA test for fun. He is interested in genealogy. He's worked on his family tree, and he is going along minding his own business, looking at his DNA results, and he sees a message from a close relative. And this is the message here. And it basically, the gist of it is that this person is a close relative of his who was adopted. And so the person basically writes Jim and says, hey, do you know who my parents are? And fortunately, Jim had known that one of his siblings had given up a child for adoption. He wasn't thinking that that was going to happen, that this child was going to contact him or find him through DNA, but it turned out to be a positive thing. The family already knew about it. The family was excited to reunite with this child, and it all worked out. It doesn't always work that way, but in this particular case, that is what happened. Now, Deb is another person that I know personally from here in the Fort Wayne area. And Deb came to me and said, well, I have this perplexing thing that has happened with my DNA results. And here's Deb's tree. So let me try to explain this to you quickly. So Deb is descended from the Smith couple. So up at the top of the screen here, you can see J and B Smith. So Deb descends from them over on the left-hand side of the chart through a daughter of theirs. And then over on the right-hand side of the chart, Len and Linda, those are Deb's cousins, and she knows them. She's grown up knowing them. They're Smiths like she is. But then both Deb, Len, and Linda started matching with these Joneses. So the Joneses are in the middle. You see William and Sheila down at the bottom there. And long story short, William and Sheila don't have any Smiths in their family tree. And Deb wrote to them and said, oh, I wonder how you could be related to me. You seem to be related to my Smith relatives because you're related to my cousins who are also Smiths. And the Joneses said, oh, we don't have any Smiths in our family tree. And Deb looked at their family tree and she concluded that they were right. They didn't have any Smiths in their family tree. There should be no reason for them to be matching with Deb. But then she realized that Grandma and Grandpa Jones, there in the middle, were living next door to Smiths in one of the censuses. And we think that some kind of something went on between Grandma Jones and one of the Smiths, probably Bill Smith. And therefore, these Joneses are really biologically Smiths. And Deb was able to find this out by DNA. Now, she didn't go up to the Joneses and say, oh, I found out that your grandma was cheating on your grandpa. She just kind of said to them, well, I think I figured it out. And if you want to know, I can tell you. And so this also went very positively. It could have gone the other way. It could have gone, kind of south pretty fast there. But as it turns out, Deb was able to add this branch to her tree that she didn't know about before, and the Joneses were able to get accurate information about who their grandfather was. So those are two DNA success stories that I know of personally. Now, on the line of what I was just saying, you want to make sure that if you test, you are prepared for unexpected results and that you are discreet about any family secrets that are revealed. So you don't want to go talking about it at the next family reunion without thinking it through really carefully. All right, so basic information about DNA and genealogy. A lot of you are interested in doing traditional genealogical research, which means you go to the library or you do online research and you look up your family and collect documents about the family, such as birth and death records, obituaries, and census records. And you want to keep doing that. If that's, if your goal is to use your DNA alongside your genealogical research. So DNA testing cannot replace genealogical research. So you still need to do the genealogical research. You want to use your DNA to supplement that research. And remember that you do not share DNA with all your distant ancestors. So sometimes DNA is not going to help you figure out who your 10th great grandfather is. You're going to have to figure that out probably through genealogical research. And as an aside, how does the testing company determine who your matches are? Well, and this is very, very broad. I'm talking very, very broad here. Your DNA was inherited from a subset of your ancestors, and all of your matches inherited their DNA from a subset of their ancestors. So if you and your match have a large enough amount of DNA in common, you must have at least one common ancestor. So there's a matching threshold that the companies have. They're not going to give you matches that are tiny amounts. They're gonna say, you have to have a match that's at least close enough that we can say that for sure that this is really a match. So basically, if you have enough DNA in common with somebody that matches the testing company's matching threshold, then you're going to be counted as a match, and it means you have a common ancestor somewhere in your tree. It could be pretty far back, but you have a common ancestor. Okay, now there's 3 types of DNA tests that are available right now, and they are as follows. The autosomal DNA test, and this is the one that is advertised on TV a lot and people hear about. It's offered by 4 reputable testing companies, and those are Ancestry, Family Tree DNA, MyHeritage,
but I can see the lady
23andMe.
that works at Fort Wayne Genealogical Library. She's doing a big thing on
Okay, hold on now. Somebody is not muted. Who's not muted? Okay, well, anyways, we were hearing somebody talk. So, all right. Then, okay, so those are the autosomal tests. And then there's the Y chromosome test. This is available from Family Tree DNA testing company. And the mitochondrial DNA test is also available from Family Tree DNA. So depending on what you want to know about, you want to take the correct test for that information. So if you want to just get your ethnicity estimate, that's the autosomal test. If you want to find genetic cousins on all sides of your family tree, that's the autosomal test. If you want to find out the paternal ancestry of a male, that's the Y chromosome test. Your maternal ancestry, mitochondrial DNA test. And adoption, you want to start out with an autosomal test. You can move on to different tests later on if you need to. So let's talk about what you get when you take the autosomal test and you get an ethnicity estimate. Okay, so ethnicity estimate is going to look a little different depending on what company you test with. So remember that there's 4 different testing companies that do the autosomal test, and you could take a test with all 4 companies. And when you do that, you will get slightly different results for your ethnicity. That doesn't mean that one test is right and one is wrong, or one's a bunch of hooey and one's correct. It just means that they're different testing companies. They have different procedures. They have slightly different methods of determining this and different methods of presenting it to you. So their screens are going to look a little different. And so you just have to read up on each company and how it is. They have a lot of help sheets there that will tell you like what you're seeing, what you're looking at. So this is Ancestry, and this is my ethnicity estimate. So you can see I'm going to draw your attention to 6% Eastern European and Russian. That's what Ancestry says that I am. And then here's 23andMe for me. And 23andMe says that I'm 11% Eastern European and 9% Southern European. And that actually is more accurate based on what I know. But I'm not going to say, you know, Ancestry is a bunch of hooey. I'm just going to say, well, you know, they've tested me a little differently. They have a different database of customers, and this is what they've come up with. They are working, the companies are working to make this better all the time. And so basically you can expect your results to change for the ethnicity and over time, and it will get better. So there's that. So what is the ethnicity estimate? So basically, this is what Ancestry's results looked like a while ago. They've changed the screen since then, but they put right on the screen, this is from the Ancestry screen, it's a screenshot. They used the word estimate, and they also said thousands of years ago. So what they were trying to signal to you there is that the ethnicity estimate is an estimate. It means it's not precise, it's not exact, it's an estimate, and it could be reaching back thousands of years ago. So not necessarily recent family history that you know about. How many of us know where our family was living 1,000 years ago? I don't. So if it tells you that you're 10% Swedish and you know that nobody in your family lived in Sweden that you are aware of, it might be that it was thousands of years ago that someone in your family lived in Sweden, or the area which is now Sweden. And that brings me to this slide, which is telling you that somebody of a French background, so if you have the idea in your family that you're French or you have a French background, you need to think about that versus France, the country. So France, the country, this is a map of Europe as of now. And France, the country, is different than French ethnic background. So there are a number of different ethnic groups that have lived in France over the years. And so they may live, and look at all the countries that border France. You've got Belgium, you've got Luxembourg, you've got Germany, you've got Switzerland, you've got Spain. And of course, United Kingdom is right across the channel. So all of those things kind of affect your ethnicity estimate, who the neighbors are, what the trade routes were through there, the wars, the history of the area that is now France, the country, the boundaries. So it's a lot more complicated than people might think. So just keep that in mind. So what should you do with your ethnicity results? I would say enjoy it. Learn as much as you can about the areas in which you are told that you have ethnic background. Certainly you can talk about it at the next family reunion, have a little chat with your friends about it. It's fun. Adopted persons have a better idea of where they came from, so that's good for them. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to take it so seriously that you become concerned that you're not the child of your parents. It doesn't work like that. You can take a paternity test at a reputable lab if you want to know who your father is, for instance, and there's some question, but don't base it on this ethnicity results at all. And if you and one or both of your parents take the same test, like if you both take the test at Ancestry, the testing company will tell you if you are if you are parent and child. It will show in your results. So I'll show you that in a minute. So the other thing you can do with your autosomal DNA test is you're going to find genetic cousins. So this is what they call them, your matches. And this is what my matches look like at Ancestry.com. These are my closest matches. And so they're arranged by closest match to farther away matches. And so here's an example of the person at the top is my mother. So my mother also took a DNA test with Ancestry, and she came up as my match. And not only that, she came up as a match as my mother. So that's what I mean, that the DNA test will show you who your parent is through the matching, not through the ethnicity estimate. So my highest matches are people that I asked to test. So I asked my mother to test, I asked my aunt to test, I asked my uncle to test, and that's who my top 3 matches are. But if I was an adopted person, these would be really exciting matches because it would pretty much lay out for me who my birth family was. So you get close matches, and then you get some farther away matches. So I have second cousins, third cousins, and so on and so forth. And these are estimated relationships. So you don't want to take them like as the gospel truth that all these people are my second cousins for sure. There's some kind of close relationship to me around second cousin. And I have to figure out how I'm exactly related to them. You can see that 4 of them have trees. So I can look at their trees and possibly get an idea of who they are. I can also look at their screen name, and sometimes the screen name will tell me, because sometimes people put in their full name like I do. I've got my name in there as Sara Allen, so people will know, if they've heard of me before at a family reunion, they'll know who I am. So what can you do with these genetic cousin matches? I would say contact them, get to know them. I would contact any match that's a third cousin or closer. You can share information, you can exchange pictures and documents about your family, you can work together. So network with them, that's really important. A DNA match on a known family line is great because then you know that your genealogical research was correct if you're matching with the correct cousins on different lines. You can confirm a maiden name for a female if you start getting a lot of matches to people of that surname that you thought was probably her surname, her maiden name. You want to be sure that you are testing your oldest family members first. They have more DNA from farther back than you do. So DNA inheritance is all about numbers. So I have 25% of each of my great-grandparents, or each of my grandparents' DNA, roughly speaking. So I have 25% from each grandparent. My mother, if I tested her, she has 25% from each of her grandparents. So she has more DNA, twice as much DNA than I do from the different relatives. So, and she has 50% of her parents' DNA. So it's important to get your parents, if they're still alive, or your grandparents, or your aunts and uncles, or at least getting a cousin from each side of your family to test, a first cousin if you have one that's still with us. It just helps you in sorting out your matches. It helps you in solving genealogical problems. It's just good to have more DNA test kits from different family members if you can possibly do so. And I thought I would just show this. So this is my father's family tree, and the autosomal DNA test that we're talking about could potentially pull in matches to my dad from any of these family lines. So this tree is showing back to my dad's second great grandparents. So he could, and he does have matches to most of these lines, except for some of the ones that are at the bottom there that we don't even know who they are. My dad's mother is a recent immigrant from Eastern Europe. And so we don't have a lot of information about those people. But So this autosomal test will pull up matches from all of these lines. Okay, so we're going to move on to paternal ancestry of a male. So this is another type of DNA test that males can take, and it's called the Y chromosome test. So again, looking at my dad's tree here, the Y chromosome test is going to be a male paternal line test. So men get their Y chromosome from their dad, and their dad passes it on to them. So my dad's male paternal line is noted here on the screen with the arrows. So his dad is David, his grandpa is also named David, and then his great-grandfather is Jacob, and then David, another David, and so on. So that's the line that would be tested with my dad's Y chromosome test. And a lot of men like to take this test to figure out the background of their paternal line, because they carry the name usually of their father's line, and they want to know more about it. They want to know about the origins and so on and so forth. So this is a good test for that. You get two different results. You get an ancient result, which is going to be this haplogroup, and my dad's haplogroup is I. So your haplogroup is going to be a letter. It's basically telling you that your paternal tribe, which is a loose grouping of somewhat related men, was living in northern, well, my dad's was living in northern France or possibly Scandinavia 23,000 years ago. And then the M253 is the subgroup that my dad is a part of. So he's in the I haplogroup, and then M253 is the subgroup. So my dad was thrilled about this because it's basically says he's from Viking origins, and he's not interested in DNA testing. He does it to humor me, but he was thrilled about that. So that's his ancient results. It's not necessarily going to tell you, this part of it is not going to tell you much of anything other than that. The second part of it is the matching. So these are matches to other men who have taken the Y chromosome test. And dad's matches are to, this is within the genealogical time period. So dad's matches are males who share a common paternal ancestor between 50 to about 500 years ago. And I removed their names, so you can't see the names of the men that he matched with, but you can see over in the middle there, their earliest known ancestors. So this is encouraging because remember, my dad's name is Donald Allen, and my dad's matches all seem to be Allens as well. This is helpful, and not everybody gets this result, but this is the result that we got. And it also helped us further into figuring out that basically we think that all of these Allens that are listed here, all of my dad's matches, are descended from one guy who came over to the US. And we figured that out by talking to each other. So again, you have to contact your matches, you have to talk to them. You also can do research on them because a lot of them have put in there who their earliest known ancestor is. So you can look up who's Anthony Allen, who's Zephaniah Allen, who's Jonathan Allen, and you can do some research on that yourself without the match's cooperation. But we found out that we're all related to Ananias Allen. He's down at the bottom there. He's from New Jersey. So all of these guys basically descend from him somehow. And we didn't know that before. So this is new information to us that the Y chromosome DNA test helped us to figure out. We did not get any matches to anyone back in England yet. We still have hopes for that. But we've learned how this group of Allens that seem to be very different all seem to descend from one man who came to New Jersey. So that's cool. So again, like I said, contact your matches, and you need to work together with them to try to figure things out. Now, not everyone's going to get the same result that my dad got. So basically speaking, Sometimes people take this Y chromosome test and they get no matches at all, or they get no matches of their current last name. So this could mean a lot of things. So don't jump to any kind of conclusions. Just kind of cool it and take it slow, and you can ask questions about it. But it could mean that no one in your particular family has tested yet. Only about 1 million men worldwide have tested. So that's not that many men. It could mean you have a rare paternal line. It could mean you're a recent immigrant family. Let's say your dad came over here from India, the country of India. Well, most of your dad's matches then would be people in India still. And I don't know how popular DNA testing is among people in India. Probably not very popular. So that would be why a person from a recent immigrant family might not have very many matches or any matches at all. It could definitely mean that there was an adoption somewhere in your family line, a child that was born out of wedlock. That could be, but it's not necessarily the first conclusion you want to jump to. All right. The next type of DNA test that we have is the mitochondrial DNA, and this is about your ancient maternal ancestry. So a male or a female can take this test. It's a test of their mother's unbroken maternal line. And the results usually basically could be finding you matches with people that you matched thousands of years ago. It might not be useful for recent maternal ancestry. I would take an autosomal test instead if that's what you're looking for. So this is the line that it's going on. So the person at the bottom there in the yellow is the person getting tested, and it's going on their mother's line. You're going to get an ancient result again, like you did for the male line test. So you're going to get a haplogroup. This will be your maternal tribe and their origins. So this is my mom's maternal origins. My mom is from haplogroup J, and it looks like, you can see there, it's from the Middle East, 50,000 years ago, spread into Europe 10,000 years ago. So it's interesting, but it's not particularly, that earth-shattering. You are going to get, let me go back there. You are going to get matches, but they could be from 50,000 years ago. They're not recent time period matches like the Y chromosome test matches are. But there are times when this is a good test to take, but you want to make sure it's about a $200 test. So you want to make sure that it's the right test to take before you take it, because you don't want to waste that money. Okay. So basically, you want to use DNA with your conventional research. So if you have come to a conclusion looking at your DNA results, you really need to have DNA results from more than one person before you decide to change your whole family tree and scrap somebody out of your tree. Let's say you decide that one of your relatives was born out of wedlock and you didn't know that. And so you're going to assign him a different father. I would say definitely get several different DNA tests from different family members before you decide that. And you should also do sound genealogical research on the same issue. You shouldn't just jump to conclusions based on the DNA. So definitely get a second opinion also from somebody who knows more about DNA than you do before you get all, I guess, excited about DNA proving or disproving something. And a special word about adoption, I alluded to this at the very beginning. If you're adopted, I would say you want to take the autosomal DNA test first, and you want to take it from Ancestry. Now, this is not because I work for Ancestry. I don't have any connection with them. It's only because Ancestry is the biggest testing database. So an adopted person is looking for one person, like they're looking for one adopted or one biological mother and one biological father. So they're looking for two people. That could be like a needle in a haystack. So it's a matter of mathematics. You want to get your DNA out there into the biggest testing database first to see whether you find any matches. And then if you don't, then you can move on to some of the other ones. And you could take, if you're a male, you could take the Y chromosome test and so on. But you definitely want to start with the autosomal test and go from there. And if you want to read up on DNA, this is a wonderful book for a beginner. They just recently came out with a second edition, but this is by Blaine Bettinger. It's called The Family Tree Guide to DNA Testing and Genetic Genealogy, and it's available to buy at a local bookstore when we can go out and do things like go to bookstores again, or you could order it online, I think at various online sites. So this is a good book to read. You read it a couple times because you might get different things out of it the second time. So, all right, I think that is the end of my PowerPoint.